I was reminded of the great history of Paterson. Recently realized that this is the centenary of the 1913 Paterson silk strike. And we tend to forget that that was a strike by and for and all about immigrants. That was an immigrant strike. Many of the immigrants came from Italy. And of course, immigration remains the great civil rights or human rights issue in this country today. I wrote this next poem in response to many of the attitudes towards immigration in this country today. A little bit of Spanish in this poem. Corrido is a Mexican ballad. The phrase quiero ver las fotos is I want to see the pictures. And finally I refer to Zapata, Emiliano Zapata, the head of the 1910 revolution in Mexico. So this poem is called Isabel's Corrido, for Isabel. Francisca said, marry my sister so she can stay in the country. I have nothing else to do. I was 23 and always cold, skidding in cigarette coupon boots from lamppost to lamppost through January in Wisconsin. Francisca and Isabel washed bed sheets at the hotel, sweating in the humidity of the laundry room, conspiring in Spanish. I met her the next day. Isabel was 19, from a village where the elders spoke the language of the Aztecs. She would smile whenever the ice pellets of English clattered around her head. When the justice of the peace said, "You may kiss the bride," our lips brushed for the first and only time. The borrowed ring was too small, jammed into my knuckle. There were snapshots of the wedding and champagne in plastic cups. Francisca said, the snapshots will be proof for immigration. We heard rumors of the interview. They would ask me the color of her underwear. They would ask her who rode on top. We invented answers and rehearsed our lines. We flipped through immigration forms at the kitchen table the way other couples shuffle cards for gin rummy. After every hand, I'd deal again. Isabel would say, quiero ver las fotos. She wanted to see the pictures of a wedding that happened but did not happen. Her face inexplicably happy. Me hoisting a green bottle dizzy after half a cup of champagne. Francisca said, she can sing corridos, songs of love and revolution from the land of Zapata. All night Isabel sang corridos in a bar room where no one understood a word. I was the bouncer and her husband, so I hushed the squabbling drunks who blinked like tortoises in the sun. Her boyfriend and his beer cans never understood why she married me. Once he kicked the front door down and the blast shook the house as if a hand grenade detonated in the hallway. When the cops arrived, I was the translator, watching the sergeant, watching her, the inscrutable squaw from every western he had ever seen, bare feet and long black hair. We lived behind a broken door. We lived in a city hidden from the city. When her headaches began, no one called a doctor. When she disappeared for days, no one called the police. When we rehearsed the questions for immigration, Isabel would squint and smile. Quiero ver las fotos, she would say. The interview was canceled. Like a play on opening night shut down when the actors are too drunk to take the stage. After she left, I found her crayon drawing of a bluebird attached to the bedroom wall. I left too, and did not think of Isabel again until the night Francisca called to say, your wife is dead. Something was growing in her brain. I imagined my wife, who was not my wife, who never slept beside me, sleeping in the ground, wondered if my name was carved into the cross above her head. No epitaph, and no corrido, another ghost in a riot of ghosts evaporating from the skin of dead Mexicans who staggered for days without water through the desert. 30 years ago, a girl from the land of Zapata kissed me once on the lips and died with my name nailed to hers like a broken door. I kept a snapshot of the wedding. Yesterday, it washed ashore on my desk. There was a conspiracy to commit a crime. This is my confession. I do it again. I'll finish with this poem. This is the concluding poem of the book. It was written immediately after the first election of Barack Obama in 2008. I happened to be in Rochester, New York, where I discovered that Frederick Douglass had been buried there, and I went to pay a visit. So here's the poem, Litany at the Tomb of Frederick Douglass, Mount Hope Cemetery, Rochester, New York, November the 7th, 2008. This is the longitude and latitude of the impossible. This is the epicenter of the unthinkable. This is the crossroads of the unimaginable. The tomb of Frederick Douglass, 3 days after the election. This is a world spinning away from the gravity of centuries, where the grave of a fugitive slave has become an altar. This is the tomb of a man born as chattel who taught himself to read in secret, scraping the letters in his name with chalk on wood. Now, on the anvil flat stone, a campaign button fills the O in Douglas. The button says, Obama. This is the tomb of a man in chains who left his fingerprints on the slave breaker's throat so the whip would never carve his back again. Now, a labor union t-shirt drapes itself across the stone offered up by a nurse, a janitor, a bus driver. A sticker on the sleeve says, I voted today. This is the tomb of a man who rolled his call to arms off the press, peering through spectacles at the abolitionist headline. Now a newspaper spreads above his dates of birth and death. The headline says, Obama wins. This is the stillness at the heart of the storm that began in the body of the first slave dragged aboard the first ship to America. Yellow leaves descend in waves, and the newspaper flutters on the tomb, like the sails Douglas saw on the bay, like the eyes of a slave closing to watch himself escape with the tide. Believers in spirits would see the pages trembling on the stone and say, look how the slave boy teaches himself to read. I say a prayer, the first in years, that here we bury what we call the impossible, the unthinkable, the unimaginable, now and forever. Amen.